Welcome, and thank you for listening to Xenozoic Xenophiles, a fan podcast devoted to the comic series Xenozoic Tales, a post-apocalyptic adventure series filled with Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, from creator, writer, and artist Mark Schultz. I'm Darren.
And I'm Ruth, and this is a fan podcast. We're not affiliated with Mark Schultz, and the opinions expressed are just ours.
We do this podcast simply because we enjoy reading and talking about Xenozoic Tales and other worlds created by Mark Schultz.
In this episode, we're continuing our coverage of the excellent animated television series Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Today we're talking about episodes 11 and 12, which aired in January 1994.
This series was adapted for television by award-winning writer, producer, and director Stephen E. Souza.
Listeners are likely familiar with his work on classic television shows like The $6 Million Man, The Hardy Boys Mysteries, and Knight Rider, as well as hugely successful films including 48 Hours, Die Hard, Judge Dredd, The Running Man, and Commando.
The entire production team did a wonderful job of bringing Xenozoic Tales to television as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, and we're really enjoying revisiting these classic episodes.
If you want to watch the show, you can find it on a few streaming services as well as on YouTube through the Retro Rerun channel. We're watching it on Amazon Prime Video.
For new listeners, we want to share a little about our title. Of course, the word Xenozoic is part of the title of the comic.
Xeno is defined as something that is strange or foreign, while zoic refers to a geological period of time. So Xenozoic basically means strange age.
And a xenophile is someone who is interested in foreign lands and foreign cultures. And that word definitely describes us, because we're interested in foreign lands and cultures just like those in Xenozoic Tales and the other worlds of Mark Schultz.
And of course, some of you know the series under the title Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which is used for the TV series as well as video games, board games, and some reprint collections.
If you love these stories and the wonderful art, be sure to join the Facebook page Mark Schultz Xenozoic Tales and Other Stories for the latest official news and information.
The place to find Mark's books is Flesk Publications. John Flesk puts out beautiful books from a variety of creators, including the collection Xenozoic, that contains all of the Xenozoic Tales stories written and illustrated by Mark Schultz, as well as the exciting book Storms at Sea and the Carbon Art Book series.
There have been several recent announcements, including Mark working on the cover art for a new Carbon Art Book collection that is planned for later this year. And they also announced a new edition of the Xenozoic stories and a new drawing collection, too.
The Facebook page also shared links to a series of interviews called Beyond the Process that feature Mark Schultz. You can find them on the Xenozoic Tales and Other Stories Facebook page, and we will include the links in our show notes as well.
Yes, lots of exciting news from Mark Schultz to make fans like us very happy.
We hope you'll join us on social media to talk more about Mark Schultz and the world of Xenozoic Tales. Later in the episode, we'll share feedback and we'll provide our email address and other ways to contact us at the end of the show.
Please feel free to write in anytime and let us know what you think about the series. We'd love to know what you like best about the art and the stories and how you first discovered Xenozoic Tales.
Xenozoic Xenophiles is part of the Rad Adventures Network.
If you enjoy the show, please consider checking out our other podcasts that are available through most podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, as well as YouTube.
Trekker Talk is a fan podcast devoted to the adventures of 23rd century bounty hunter Mercy St. Clair from the pages of the sci-fi comic Trekker by writer and artist Ron Randall.
And Warlord Worlds is a fan podcast devoted to the comic creations of writer and artist Mike Grell, including The Warlord, John Sable, and Green Arrow.
Mark Schultz, Ron Randall, and Mike Grell are our favorite comic creators. Their stories are filled with adventure and interesting characters, and their art is always excellent.
We'll include links to those other podcasts in our show notes, but for now, let's talk about Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, right after this message from another podcast you might enjoy.
For more than 60 years, Dr. Victor Von Doom has been portrayed in comic books as a villain. But one podcast has been brave enough to challenge this narrative and present the man as the misunderstood anti-hero he truly is. I'm Professor Allen, and the podcast is Doom Speak. On the show, we present a more balanced view of Marvel's most maligned monarch. Over the years, we've covered his adventures in titles such as Iron Man, Doom 2099, Astonishing Tales, Silver Sable, and occasionally the title dedicated to his most persistent antagonists, Fantastic Four. If you believe that there's more behind the man behind the mask than the fake news that Big Comic wants you to think, then Doomspeak may be the podcast for you. Doomspeak can be found on all major podcast platforms as a part of the Relatively Geeky network feed and at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com. Give the show a listen. And hail Doom!
Episode 11, Departure, written by David Wise, originally broadcast on January 14, 1994.
This episode opens at the harbor of the City in the Sea, where Hannah Dundee is joining a group of sailing ships for some fishing. Watching from the docks, Jack notices something that looks like a large net being installed and asks about it. And Kurgo explains Scharnhorst is having a floating, low-voltage electric fence installed to keep threshers, or Mosasaurus, from swimming into the harbor. However, for the fence to work, they need to spot an approaching thresher early enough to have time to attach the batteries to power the fence, since it can't be left on all the time, and that has been challenging. To illustrate the point, just then, before the batteries have been connected to the fence, a thresher swims into the harbor. Worrying about Hannah, Jack jumps into a motorboat and races into the harbor and rescues Hannah just before the thresher crushes her sailboat. Jack and Hannah then watch as the thresher continues through the harbor and swims into one of the city canals. Jack and Hannah pursue it in the motorboat, and Hannah speculates the thresher is hungry because the fishing fleets have disrupted its food supply. The pair see the thresher leap from the water and onto a wooden pier being used as a market to sell fish from the daily catch. Jack takes aim and fires at a pillar above the thresher, which falls and startles it, and it swims away down the canal further into the city.
Next, we find Hannah, Jack, and Mustafa at a nearby cliff. The others aren't sure of the plan, but are just following Hannah's instructions as they use a net launcher to capture a group of Zeeks who have made a home on the cliffs. Following Hannah's instructions, they transport the Zeeks into the city, where they drop a large amount of fish into the canal and then release the Zeeks, who enjoy the feast of fish and then settle atop a nearby building, which they make their new home. Jack makes fun of Hannah's stunt, and in frustration she replies that she has been offered a chance to lead a marine research project back in Wassoon. It's the job she has always dreamed of, and she can go back home where she is more appreciated. Just then Scharnhorst arrives, demanding to know what Hannah is up to, and as Hannah tries to explain her plan, Scharnhorst dismisses her and demands the Zeeks be removed. Hannah says, "If the Zeeks go, I go." Then Scharnhorst replies that she would be very happy with that.
Back at the garage, Hannah tries to explain herself to Jack, who just laughs at her and says she has turned the city into an oversized birdcage. Hannah angrily stomps away and takes a jeep and leaves for Wassoon. After she leaves, Jack wonders why Hannah wouldn't listen to him, and then realizes he should probably go after her, and he drives into the wilderness.
As she is driving through the wastelands, a civet, or Tyrannosaurus rex, charges at Hannah's jeep, causing it to slide from the road into a valley. Jack finds her trying to get her jeep back on the road and says he's going with her, and continues to make fun of her idea about the Zeeks, and in frustration, Hannah races away without him.
Jack is driving back home when he sees a giant tank war wagon headed in his direction. In the distance, Hannah hears cannon fire and turns the jeep around and races toward the sounds. As Jack attempts to outrun the giant tank, a shell hits near his Cadillac, causing it to flip over on its side, and he's taken inside the war wagon. In charge of the giant tank is Lars Stryker, who we learn was the captain of the city guard in the past. He was exiled to the wastelands after trying to take over the city through a military coup. Stryker tells Jack he's planning to use the giant tank to attack the city in the sea, and then Jack learns why they brought him on board. Stryker wants Jack to solve the problem of their engine overheating, but Jack refuses, so Stryker has him tied up and thrown into the river below.
In her Jeep, Hannah had caught up to the giant tank in time to see Jack captured and taken inside. She has been following at a safe distance since then. Seeing all of this, Hannah rushes along the river in time to rescue Jack, who asks for her help in stopping the war wagon. Hannah has a plan and drives the Jeep alongside and then pulls in front of the war wagon. Stryker brings the giant tank to a stop and demands that Hannah quickly tell him why he shouldn't just drive right over her and her Jeep. While Stryker is distracted by Hannah, Jack climbs through a hatch under the giant tank where he discreetly cuts the line to the cooling system. However, Jack is captured as he tries to leave the tank, so Stryker has both him and Hannah locked and chained inside the tank as it continues toward the city and the sea. However, Hannah has a concealed weapon that they are able to use to shoot through their chains, and the two of them are able to escape just before the engines overheat and explode, destroying the war wagon.
Back at the city and the sea, Governors Scharnhorst and Nock and a group of guards have been repeatedly unsuccessful in their attempts to drive away the Zeeks. Just then, Hannah notices the Zeeks from the building begin to circle overhead, and she sounds the alarm. This gives the city guard time to attach the batteries and charge the fence, all just in time to drive away a thresher that is swimming toward the harbor. As the city residents cheer the success of the way this early warning system helped the fence to work for the first time, Scharnhorst sees an opportunity and quickly takes credit for the idea of bringing the Zeeks into the city.
To start, we always love seeing the harbor of the city and the sea. It provides a great visual contrast between the city and waterfront areas, and I love seeing the sailing ships. The whole section is beautifully animated. I also like seeing how the thresher easily breaks through the fencing, and it was an exciting sequence when the huge sea creature capsized Hannah's boat. I really like the terrific views of the city as Jack and Hannah followed the thresher through the canals. It's always nice to see different parts of the city. The movement of the creature swimming through the water and leaping out above the pier was illustrated very well. I also like seeing the fish market on the pier with the various colors for the different tents. I could imagine different types of fish and seafood being sold under each tent. It adds a nice atmosphere to the story.
And I always enjoy seeing the Zeeks in the series, and it was great to have a story that featured them. The scenes of them flying around are nicely done, and it's fun to try to figure out what Hannah's plan is after catching them with those nets. And the episode does a nice job of saving the reveal of that plan until the end, so that the viewer can realize the full meaning of the plan at the same time as the characters in the show. And of course, we see that Scharnhorst remains as unlikable as ever, as she takes credit for Hannah's idea in the end.
The episode also does a nice job of repeating the theme of Hannah feeling unappreciated, and it helps the viewer feel as frustrated at the situation as Hannah does, even if we don't know the plan. The scenes of Jack and Hermes at the garage are fun. It's nice to know that Jack doesn't want Hannah to leave, though he struggles and has trouble saying it. Jack knows he is wrong to have repeatedly made fun of Hannah's idea, but instead of apologizing to her, we see him trying to explain himself to Hermes. It's funny to think about Hermes as a mechanic's assistant, and there are some nice touches of humor in this section as we see Jack sprayed in the face with oil, and then Hermes drops a wrench on Jack's hand. And it's hilarious when Jack seems to start using Hermes as a therapist, as the juvenile Allosaurus just stares at him blankly.
For the other part of the episode, I thought the design of the giant tank was impressive. It looks massive and well-armed. I like that we quickly realize that Stryker and Jack know each other from the past, which explains why Stryker had Jack brought on board the war wagon for his knowledge and skills. I think Lars Stryker is an interesting character who could have been revisited if we had gotten another season of the show. I also like that even though Hannah is very frustrated with Jack, she really cares about him and comes to his rescue when she realizes something is wrong.
I also like Hannah's confidence in her diplomatic skills, and she knows she will be able to distract and stall Stryker and give Jack time to sabotage the giant tank. I also like the nice Laurel and Hardy joke when Jack says, "Well, this is another fine mess you've gotten us into."
And in closing, I'll just say that I enjoyed both the story about the Zeeks and the story about the war wagon. In fact, I think both storylines were great ideas, and I honestly wish these two stories were separate episodes, because I think there's enough ideas that both of these stories could have been expanded and developed a little further. However, it's still a great episode of this very great series.
Episode 12, Duel, written by Michael Reeves, originally broadcast on January 21st, 1994.
Jack and Hannah are racing through the wasteland with a bonehead, or Pachycephalosaurus, in pursuit, when Jack takes a sudden turn and drives across a natural bridge to escape it, and the bridge crumbles into the valley just as they cross it. Arriving back at the garage, Jack finds that his old friend Sean Russell has come to visit. Jack seems happy to chat with his friend, but Hannah takes an immediate dislike to Sean because of his excessive bragging and aggressive flirting. As Jack shows him around the garage, Sean takes an interest in a helicopter engine that Jack has been rebuilding, and we also learn the two always competed during their training to be mechanics, and that Jack always finished second to Sean. As he leaves, Sean says he's thinking of settling down in the area, as he leers at Hannah and then drives away.
The next day, Jack is driving through the wasteland when his car suddenly overheats. Looking under the hood, Jack sees the radiator hose appears to have been cut. Returning to the garage, Jack finds Hermes has collapsed on the ground and appears to have been drugged, and then he sees the helicopter engine he was working on has been stolen. Jack wonders aloud who would have sabotaged his car and drugged Hermes to have time to steal the engine, and Hannah reacts in surprise that Jack hasn't guessed the obvious answer, since Sean took an interest in the engine the day before. Jack refuses to believe that, since Sean is also an old-blood mechanic like him, and he doesn't believe anyone like that would do this. Just then, as he begins to recover from the drug, Hermes seems to react to something that Jack and Hannah can't hear, and then Hermes runs from the garage.
Jack and Hannah follow Hermes through the wilderness, where they find a stampede of many different slithers traveling in the same direction as Hermes. Just then, the wild child they met in the past drops onto the Cadillac and urgently signals for them to follow him. The wild child leads Jack and Hannah into the Grith's territory, but Jack comments that he doesn't feel their presence. Leaving the Cadillac, Jack and Hannah follow the wild child through a crevice into the Grith's underground village, which is ominously quiet. As they continue to explore the city, they finally find Hob and the other Grith, who seem to be in a trance-like state. Jack is able to briefly wake Hob from the trance, and Hob weakly says the life stone that is vital to their lives has been stolen, and then he slips back into a trance.
The wild child stays to protect the vulnerable Grith, and our duo races off in the Cadillac as Jack surmises that whatever is controlling the slithers is also impacting the Grith. As they continue to follow the slithers, Jack comments about how docile they all seem to be as both carnivores and herbivores are traveling together. Eventually, the dinosaurs gather in a remote ravine, and just then a helicopter flies into view and hovers above the Cadillac, and it's being piloted by Sean, and Jack finally realizes Hannah has been right all along. Sean takes them prisoner and ties them up, and as the slithers calmly gather in the ravine, Sean explains that he stole the life stone from the Grith using the helicopter, thanks to Jack's engine. Sean placed the life stone on a cliff above the ravine to draw the slithers together, and with the Terhune brothers' help, he plans to slaughter the dinosaurs to sell their hides, meat, bones, and teeth to make a fortune.
As Sean flies away, Jack is able to break free from his bonds and gets a rifle from the Cadillac and shoots down the helicopter, which crashes nearby. Sean escapes the crash and gets in his car and begins to drive up a natural bridge toward where he placed the life stone. Jack jumps in his Cadillac and chases after Sean. As Jack forces Sean's car off the road, Hannah lassos Sean with a rope and pulls him away from the plummeting car. Jack and Hannah tie up Sean in the back of their Cadillac and take the life stone and drive back toward the Grith city. Without the life stone's effect, the slithers begin to come out of their trance-like state, and we see the Terhune brothers arrive just in time for a stampede of very angry dinosaurs.
The The opening sequence is very exciting with some good thrills, and the animators do a great job of showing how dangerous and strong the bonehead dinosaur is. I love the look of the arch bridge they drive over, and hate to see it get destroyed as they cross it. The sequence reminded me very much of walkways crumbling away underneath my character's feet when I'm playing video games.
In the scenes at the garage, I really appreciate Hannah's expressions and body language that clearly show us she really doesn't like Jack's old friend. Sean is clearly a creep, and the episode does a good job of making Sean immediately unlikable, and the audience feels exactly like Hannah from the beginning. It is fun to see Hermes curled up on a pile of tires, enjoying his axle the way a dog might enjoy a bone. It adds some nice comic relief during these scenes with Sean.
There's some gorgeous art during the scenes at the garage and during the scenes that follow as Jack and Hannah drive out to follow Hermes. I love the double moons in the sky and the nice colors and composition in the backgrounds. And I love the way the colors slowly change to transition that gorgeous nighttime sky into an equally beautiful daytime sky. We then see a fun scene of Jack driving with reflections in the chrome on his car, and we see a large herd of plant-eating dinosaurs in the background. I love these landscape views and the colorful scenery. I also like that the retractable drawbridge used to enter the garage is shown off several times in this episode. It's a nice visual representation that the garage is Jack's castle, and I like that thought.
We like a good mystery, and here we have several mysterious situations in play, from a stolen engine, to the odd actions of the dinosaurs all traveling in the same direction, to the trance-like state of the Grith. Of course, it's all connected, and everyone from the viewers to Hannah knows it's Sean, but it's fun to see that Jack is slow to accept that. Jack has very strong ideals, and it's difficult for him to accept that his friend and fellow old-blood mechanic would do something like this. Seeing the Grith village is one of my favorite parts of the episode. It's very nicely animated with lots of atmosphere, and I really like the designs of the buildings and the alleyways.
In closing, I will say I think Sean should have been put in a Grith prison instead of Scharnhorst prison, because she will be very interested in what he tried to do, and I think she will likely set him up with a team to try it all again. And I did enjoy the touch of humor at the end of the episode when the Terhune brothers arrived just in time for a rampaging herd of angry dinosaurs. This was a fun ending to a very good episode.
Next up is listener feedback, when we share the emails and messages we've received since last time.
Thanks to everyone for the comments. Your support and encouragement is great, and we appreciate everyone who took time to get in touch to share your thoughts.
Our friend Austin Appleby let us know he enjoyed catching up on the previous episode of Xenozoic Xenophiles while on a long road trip. He said it was great to get back to the animated adventures of Jack and Hannah in Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. We always appreciate your enthusiasm, Austin. Thank you.
Watch Secret Crisis wrote to say, I keep getting interrupted in my pursuit of watching episodes, and added that they are nostalgic for Hannah. We sure hope you are able to find more time to watch Cadillacs and Dinosaurs soon, and we think Hannah's a great character to revisit in these episodes. Thanks for writing.
The podcrasher Tim Price sent us a quick note to say this was another great episode, and thanked us for playing his promo. Tim is always so kind. We've been fortunate to spend time with him at some comic conventions over the years. He always has so much enthusiasm for comics and podcasts. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you to everyone for the wonderful comments and for sharing your love of this excellent animated series.
Next, we want to extend our thanks to everyone who supported the show on social media since last episode. These are people who commented or shared posts from us, and we sincerely appreciate all of the support.
Before we start, let me say if we miss a name, just let us know, and we'll correct it next time. And please forgive us if we mispronounce your name, just let us know, and we'll correct it next time.
Al Sedano, Alex Davis Floyd, Austin Appleby, Benoit Blairy, Bill Beer, Billy Dunleavy, Brian Mulvey, Chris Mounts, Clinton Robeson, Cullen Stapleton, Danny Newman, David Wade, Derek W.C., Ed and Terry Moore, Jerry Green, Glenn Allen, Gregory Bouveray, Harry Shute of the sci-fi comic What Divine Anguish, James Helm, James Williams, Jason Albrick, Jeff Evans, Jeffrey Sargent, Jerry McMullen, Jim Latimer, John Baker, John Copenhaver, John Scott, Laszlo, Linda Carty Foster, Loston Wallace,
Magazines and Monsters, Martin Gray, Michael Lane, Mike Garvey, Onan Gupta, Paige Grow, Pat Sampson, Peter Noga, Peter Rowe, Phil Cobley, Philip Hillis, Professor Allen, Rebel Base Comics, Rich Dannies, Rick Heineken, Rick Sellers, Robert Leach, Robert Montserrat, Rod Pellegrini, Ron and Lynn Randall, Ruth Michaels, Scott Connor, Sue Mullins, Ted Green, Terry Midnight, Tim McEwen, Tom Francis, and Warren Montgomery.
Thank you again, everyone, and we'll be right back after this promo for another podcast that you might enjoy.
According to the latest report from FalsifiedStats.com, there are currently 12 million active comic book podcasts clogging up the internet superhighway, and 2.3 million new comic book podcasts are being created every single day. If you're looking for something a little different, then let me tell you about Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow. Mike travels the globe and visits comic shops along the way, talking to the owners, or really just whomever happens to be minding the store that day. And it's through these conversations that you'll meet some wonderful people and learn how comic shops are run in places like Murfreesboro, Illinois, and Liverpool, New South Wales, Australia. So check out Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow, a truly unique comic book podcast among billions of the same old, same old. Find it now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Mike, and I approve this message.
Before we go, we want to provide our contact information.
If you want to contact us directly or have something you would like to have read on the show, then please send an email to xenozoicxenophiles@gmail.com.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Xenozoic Xenophiles, and you can visit our website at xenozoicxenophiles.com for links to all of our social media pages.
You can listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and most other podcast apps, and all of our episodes are always available at xenozoicxenophiles.com.
You can also find the show on YouTube as part of the Rad Adventures Network. That's Rad, R-A-D, which is short for Ruth and Darren.
And on the Rad Adventures YouTube channel, you'll find all of the episodes of all of our podcasts, including Xenozoic Xenophiles, as well as Trekker Talk about 23rd Century Bounty Hunter Mercy St. Clair by Ron Randall, and Warlord Worlds about the comic creations of Mike Grell, including the Warlord, John Sable, and Green Arrow.
If you like the show, please consider leaving a review. Every review helps the podcast be more likely to show up in search results.
And on YouTube, we hope you'll subscribe to the channel and give us some likes on the videos.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll come back next time for another new episode of Xenozoic Xenophiles.
Xenozoic Xenophiles is a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. For more information, please visit comicspodcasts.com. We are not affiliated with Mark Schultz or the various companies that have published the series. The views expressed on the show are solely ours. Music is taken from the album Movie Tunes, Background Music, Songs and Loops, Volume 2. We make no money from this podcast, and no copyright infringement is intended.